Welcome, everybody, to another edition of 10 Words or Less, in which I ask brief questions of interesting people and request brief answers in return. I'm Michael Prager. I'm a well-being coach. I'm a professional speaker, and I'm the author of two books, Fat Boy, Thin Man, and Sustainable You. This is about the 80th interview I've done of this type, and you can check out all of them, well, most of them, at michaelprager.com/10 words or less, where the 10 is a 1 and a 0, not a T, an E, and an N. Today's guest is very impressive, not only thriving in, but leading her chosen field, workplace wellness. She and I know each other through the organization she founded, the Worksite Wellness Council of Massachusetts, and by virtue of our memberships in the National Speaker Association New England chapter, where we're both members of the board of directors. Before I get started, here's my you playing at home. Is an ethic, not a limit, so please don't count. As college friends used to say, if you think it's, let's see you do it, then spout off. Okay, Mari, please begin by spelling your names as you wish to see them in print.
Sure, it's M-A-R-I. Last name is Ryan. R-Y-A-N.
Mari, short for anything longer?
Nope, that's it.
That's it. Family name?
Ryan.
No, I apologize. Did Mari arrive from being a family name?
No, it wasn't. My mother saw it on a truck.
There's always a reason anyway. I was going to say, where were you born and when? Please be specific.
Boston, Massachusetts, December 11th.
You prefer not to say the year?
Correct.
You don't have to. You don't have to answer any of these questions. All right, though. All right, then. Where do you live now?
Watertown, Massachusetts.
Okay. And again, I don't mean to pry as much as you're willing to disclose. What is your family circumstance?
I am surrounded by many people that I love and who love me. I have a dog named Miss Kate, who is a 14-year-old, Karen Terrier. I share my home with a housemate and another dog named Gus, a black lab.
Excellent. I'm always interested how people very often give more details about their dogs than their humans. Tell me, what do you do for work?
I am CEO and founder of Advancing Wellness, which is a worksite well-being company.
I'm sorry, by your tone, I thought maybe there was more to it. Your description, I mean. But no, okay. What did you want to be when you grew up?
I wanted to be a special education teacher. That's what I thought I wanted to be when I graduated from high school. And then I went to college and started taking some courses that were sort of liberal arts type courses. And I kept thinking, so when are we going to get to the stuff that's going to really help me with what I want to do in my career? And I discovered that that was going to be a long time. So I quit college and went to work and found that I was much more fulfilled in the business world than I was with what I was studying.
Did you ever go back and get a degree?
I did. It took me a while. I made many attempts at it. I finished my undergraduate degree when I was 32 years old.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Tell me, someone outside your family who made a strong impression on you early on?
That would be, well, there were two people. It was a husband and wife. So there was a couple that ran the Girl Scout troop that I was part of from the time I was about 12 years old until I graduated from high school. And both of them have just recently passed away, but they were real important people in my life when I was in those formative teenage years.
Do you mind saying their names? They deserve a shout out.
Yeah, sure do. They're Rachel and Bill Harden. They were from Easton, Massachusetts, and for decades they served as role models for many, many girls not only in the town that I grew up in, Easton, but throughout Massachusetts and really throughout the world. They really had a huge impact in many people's lives.
Tell me something specific you learned from one of them, please.
So a couple of things I would say. One is perseverance. We did a lot of different kinds of things when we were in our scouting experiences. And I would say perseverance was one of the things that I learned. But I think a lot of my leadership skills actually came in those developmental years. The being given responsibility, being given opportunity to try something and maybe have it work out or not have it work out, and learning from those experiences and being put in leadership positions at a fairly young age.
Cool. What was the first job you were ever paid for?
I was a camp counselor. No, probably babysitting. Yeah, babysitting.
Okay. Is there anything you retained from that job that's still pertinent today?
Yeah, that if you don't like what you're doing, stop doing it and find something you do like doing.
Okay. Tell me the first time you ever thought about wellness.
Probably when I was 6 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's kind of, yeah. It was just around Thanksgiving time, and my father wasn't going to be with us for Thanksgiving because he'd had a heart attack. He was 40 years old, and it was a pretty debilitating heart attack. And that was in a time when, this was in the 60s, when they didn't have the kind of, medical care that we have. He survived the heart attack, but it was pretty shattering for me as a 6-year-old to think that this parent might not be here at any given point in time. And I realized, I guess I kind of realized that at the time. So anyone who knows me well knows that I'm a passionate walker and, like to do a lot of physical activity. And a lot of that comes from the fact that my father had heart disease from a very young age.
Now, you founded 2006. Tell me something that's strikingly different today than then.
Oh, a lot. Many more years of experience under my belt. What's strikingly different today? Good question, Michael. Let's see. Strikingly different today. I think probably my own level of maturity about running my business and understanding, what the needs of the marketplace are. I naively assumed in 2006 when I started this business that, well, of course, everybody gets why it's important to have healthy employees. And I never imagined I was going to have to spend years educating people about why this was a good thing. So I think my own understanding of not everybody gets right away that having healthy employees is a really important, valuable part of what happens in the workplace.
That's a great answer. Thank you. I'd like you to say a little bit more about that. Why is it good? Isn't it just do-gooding? I mean, people are supposed to worry about their health on their own time.
Well, not exactly, because our work can impact our health. If we think about the amount of stress that might emanate from the workplace, many people I know, and I'm sure we've all experienced this, is that a large source of stress, as an example, can be your work. A large part of, we spend a large part of our day in the workplace. So it's natural to think that we would want to have a workplace that's not only going to contribute to our intellectual interests, but also to our well-being. And well-being is, it's much more than just our physical health. It comes to our work-life balance, how much time we spend at work, how much time we have available and how much energy we have available to be with our family when we're done with work. So from a business perspective, if you don't have healthy employees, try running your business without employees tomorrow and see how well that works. If they're not there showing up healthy, productive, engaged, really committed to the work that you're doing in your organization, well, you're not going to get very far. And your bottom line is going to be impacted.
Okay. Are there metrics that show how the bottom line is impacted?
Absolutely. Tons and tons of metrics that can be measured, from If we think of well-being as a broader perspective, not just the physical health of your employees. The physical health we can measure, let's say, with, looking at sick days, or we could look at productivity, and we could also look at healthcare claims. But there's other measures of well-being, engagement, the extent to which people, is morale measurable? I'd say it is. When morale's good, and when it's not. So there's a lot of measures. Turnover is another way that you can measure well-being. If employees aren't happy where they are, then they're going to be gone, and that certainly is another metric.
Okay. What is a mistake that wellness program providers are still making, do you think?
I would say probably the biggest mistake. Well, can I do two? Or just one? You want the biggest one? Okay.
You can give two, but they're both only 10 words or less.
The biggest mistake is they don't have a plan. They don't have a plan. So they don't lay out a plan for what they're going to do and how they're going to do it. They don't have goals and objectives. That's the most common mistake that I see. And then the second mistake that I see is that there's the belief that incentives are really a worthwhile investment and that they're going to drive long-term behavior change.
Please say that one again. You think that, well, yes, please say it again. So about incentives.
So there's a belief, and many organizations have incentive, policies that they use that are tied to their wellness programs. And in looking at, how they design those incentives, what they're doing is they're rewarding short-term behavior. So, we'll pay you $100 to take a health assessment, or we'll pay you $300 to go to your doctor and to meet the requirements of one or two, given health criteria. And we're going to pay you, $100 if you, participate in this wellness program or X number of hoops that you might have to jump through. But all of that does is get people to complete those tasks. What it doesn't do is it doesn't foster intrinsic motivation. Actually, it diminishes intrinsic motivation, and it doesn't have a long-term lasting impact.
So how can an HR program develop intrinsic motivation?
Well, if you think from an HR program systematically, as opposed to just a wellness or well-being program, it's going to incorporate elements that are going to encourage intrinsic motivation. So those are going to be things like giving people a sense of belonging, whether we are belonging to a particular group within the workplace, or we're just, feeling cared for and belonging within the general workplace. You also want to really help people identify, what's their why. So I've already told you a story about my why, which was that when I was 6 years old, my father wasn't there for Thanksgiving. So my why of why I exercise every day is because I want to have a healthy heart and I want to, live a long, healthy life. So getting to helping individuals recognize what's their why, whether it's, I saw a friend the other day I hadn't seen in a while at a professional event, and she'd lost a significant amount of weight. And I knew that she had a granddaughter, and I said, that granddaughter must be running you ragged. And she says, well, I got to my 65th birthday and decided this was the time I really needed to, for my long-term health, I needed to make significant changes. And, oh, by the way, there was another grandbaby on the way. So she's got those motivations. That's her why. That's why she's feeling like she needs to take command of her life and really improve her health. So helping folks understand their why, I think, is an essential piece. And these things, really are the foundation of intrinsic behavior, understanding intrinsic motivation.
Okay. What's a persistent barrier to the success of a wellness program or well-being program?
A common barrier. Well, so let's talk about this in let's think about this in terms of sizes of businesses. So smaller businesses may not have the kind of program, any type of a well-being or wellness program, in large part because they're so busy running the business that it's hard to stop and take time to do those things. And therefore, they may not have any budget to put towards the program. What we see in larger organizations is they may have, a program, but we have sort of short attention spans. And without having a plan, which I mentioned earlier, and specific goals and objectives that you're working towards, it's easy to either get distracted or end up doing random programming because you don't have a plan. And then, you're not doing what employees really want to do. Without having information about what employees really want to do, you're probably running a program that's based on some other piece of information that may not be relevant to what employees want.
Would you say that, I'd like you to assess the tide, it used to be, robber barons, work your butt off. I don't care if you never see your family. I don't care if you're 14 years old, that kind of thing. And so clearly there's, we've come some ways since then. And some point in the future, all employers, who knows what will happen in the future, but one possible vision is that all employers will be fully invested in this intrinsic motivation because they fully realize how important this is to their bottom line success. Mm-hmm. On that broad swing, where do you think we are?
It's an interesting question. Well, certainly, the robber barons, for the most part, we'd like to think are gone, but we know that there are still places where employees aren't treated well, and especially lower wage workers. So we know that their health and safety may still be compromised. Certainly we've had lots of government regulation, that's been required to be able to, overcome some of those challenges. But I also read recently that not as many organizations have a wellness program as we might like. And so I think we're probably, closer to the end of the spectrum where employees are valued and, and treated well in the way that they work, in the way they are managed in the workplace. But we still have a long way to go. We still don't have policies that support families with, especially here in the U.S. where, maternity leave and paternity leave are, paid programs for families are not a standard benefit. So I think you still have a long way to go.
Thank you. The thing I'm wondering about is if we reach this, employment nirvana, I don't know, it's absurd extreme of, then companies won't need the government to tell them to do it. They'll see they can make more money by doing it. Is that still, off in some distant future?
Well, it could be. You could make the argument that we still have unions in this country because workers don't feel like they're being treated fairly. So, are we a long way from utopia? Probably.
Yeah, well, I guess we always will be.
Yeah.
Any kind of utopia, not just the one we're talking about today.
Exactly.
Tell me, please name for us a fellow health promotion advocate who has particularly impressed you.
A health promotion advocate who has particularly impressed me. Whoa. I know there's a long list, so I'd have...
Of course there is, and the fact that you leave everyone else out does not reflect on them. You've just been asked for one of them today, and your answer next week could be different, and you can use what I just said to all those people who complain that you didn't name them.
So someone who has impressed me, that was your question?
It was.
Okay. So I'm going to cite someone who recently passed away.
Okay.
He was a person that I met very early in my career in this field, and that's Bill Bond. And Bill was for many years until he retired earlier this year from the MD Anderson Cancer Center. Bill ran the wellness program and led the wellness initiatives at the MD Anderson Cancer Center. And ironically, Bill died of cancer just last month. And what I so appreciated about Bill was his willingness to share. When I first came into this field, I was new to the field. I'd had tons of business experience. I'd spent my entire career in business, but I was new to this field. So the subject matter expertise was new to me. And he was incredibly willing to share like minute details of how he ran programs. He was a practitioner running programs, motivating people in that workplace, huge workplace. And he was so giving and so willing to share. And that for me was just, and I find it across this field generally, that people are incredibly willing to share and really motivated for the greater good, not so tied up in their own egos.
How do you spell Bill's last name?
Baun.
One more time, please.
Baun.
Okay, thank you. I first time. Okay, fine. Thank you. I just want to be able to, like I said, even though he's passed on, it's funny. So have the people you named earlier. Do you like any living people? Just kidding. Just kidding. I'm sorry, Maria. That was unkind of me. I just want to make sure that the person who deserves the credit, everybody knows his name. That's all I was speaking there. What can you tell us about HERO, the Health Enhancement Research Organization?
So HERO is a fabulous, fabulous research for not just folks in the well-being profession and worksite wellness, but really for human resource managers alike. It's a nonprofit organization, and it is a US-based organization that works through a think tank sort of format to do research on topics related to well-being and wellness in the workplace. And they have one of their fabulous tools that is free and publicly available is the HERO Scorecard. So any organization can use that scorecard to kind of benchmark where they are in terms of their program, see some opportunities to be able to improve their program and really use it as a tool to be able to see what they've got and what's missing, and a way to get a score that compares them to other organizations in the US.
There are some who, I'm sorry.
It's a great tool.
Thank you. There are some who sneer at most of what constitutes the wellness industry. Have you heard anything about that?
Well, I think every industry, every topic perhaps has, has the supporters and the detractors. And, that's part of what makes the role of freedom of speech in our country and in the world, to be able to have your opinion and be able to say it.
Someone I'm thinking of uses the phrase, actually several people use the phrase, the pry, poke, and prod method school of wellness programs. That actually, I think it's in alignment with something you said earlier about giving people short-term incentives to do things that, even when they succeed, are not going to succeed in the long term. And that they often speak about doing wellness to people instead of for people.
Right.
You have any reaction to that?
Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree with some of those types of comments. One of the key things that I think is really important whenever you're designing a well-being program is really understanding what people are interested in and what do they want to do. In that, when we don't do that, that's when we're doing wellness to them. And, it's not going to be successful, fundamentally. So I don't disagree with those comments and understand that there are times where, some people may feel like an employer's crossing a line with wanting to do biometric screening and, gather health data and those kinds of things. And in some cases, I would agree with that. Do we need to do biometric screenings in the workplace? The challenge we have with some of those kinds of situations is that if you do it in the, you do these kinds of activities in the workplace, and I get a number, and this is the, based on my experience in working with many, many clients, we give the person the information. They may have a little coaching in the moment to understand, what the meaning of those numbers are. And then they take that piece of paper we gave them and they drop it in the wastebasket on their way out the door. So they had 10 minutes of that and nothing came from it. There's no action that follows up on that. We've always preferred in working with our clients to make sure that that person has a relationship with their primary care physician, and they see that conversation with the physician and those testing activities with the physician as the place where those are best suited. Because if you go to your physician and you have high blood pressure or high cholesterol, you're going to get a plan for that. You're going to get a treatment plan, which you don't get a treatment plan in the workplace. So, there's certainly, I think it's good to be questioning whether the things we're doing are meaningful and effective.
You volunteer a lot. What's in it for you?
I do volunteer a lot. What's in it for me? Well, within my own field, it's the giving back. It's making sure that I'm contributing. I had a lot of people like Bill Bond, who early in my career in this field were very giving and gave me support and help. And I want to be able to do that, to really give back, to make sure that our field continues to grow in a professional way, in a way that's going to have impact for the long term. And outside of my, direct field in other areas, such as we share with the National Speakers Association, I feel like I have also gotten great support from the people in that organization. And again, I want to be able to give back and be able to help others and feel like I'm making a contribution to their future as well.
Cool, thank you. Mm-hmm. Tell me something you learned from climbing Kilimanjaro.
From climbing Mount Kilimanjaro. So that was an interesting experience. I climbed Mount Kilimanjaro in 2006. And there were a lot of lessons that came. Anytime I've done long walks, I've had other long walk experiences, and that one kind of feels like it was a long walk. It was 8 days on the mountain. And there were some things that I learned that were learned under some difficult circumstances. One was that as we were departing Boston to leave we were literally in the airport in Boston, when we received word that there had been a tragedy on the mountain. And there had been a rock slide in a section of the mountain. This is a very, very rare occurrence, but there had been some fatalities. And up to that point, I was thinking that, okay, maybe altitude sickness is, something to worry about, maybe you twist an ankle, but I'd never thought of this experience that I was going into as being inherently extremely risky. And so it gave me a little bit of a, certainly a reason to pause, but I'm about to get on the plane, so I'm not turning back now. But really having, a deeper sense of that sometimes we undertake things that have more risk to them than we know. And the other piece that I learned from this experience, because of that incident, we had to take a different route to the summit. And we ended up on a route that was very steep. We went from 15,000 feet to 19,000 feet in about an 8-hour period of time. And we were walking uphill in scree. So it was like walking up a sand dune. You put one foot in and then you slide a little, and you put the next foot in and you slide back a little. And you kept doing, all the way to the top. And at 19,000 feet, you cross into the caldera. There's a place there called Stella Point. And that was probably the hardest physical thing I've ever done in my life over that 8-hour period of time. And keeping in mind, you're going from 15,000 feet to 19,000 feet. So the amount of oxygen you have available continues to diminish. And any time I now get into a situation where I feel like I'm doing something really, really difficult, whether it's emotionally or physically, I remember Stella Point. I said, I can get to Stella Point. And I use that perseverance that I experienced that day and the just pushing on no matter what, just to be able to pull me through other things.
Awesome. What a great place to leave it. Thank you very much, Mari Ryan, CEO and founder of Advancing Wellness, and a very involved, helpful person in many other ways as well. I appreciate spending this time with you. What I'm going to do is post this on my blog in the next day or two. Then I'm going to have a transcript. I'm going to edit that transcript in ways that I'll tell you about later. So it won't be an accurate reflection of our conversation, but you'll get to approve everything before I publish it. So it will be as though it will be an accurate reflection of you, even if it's not of our conversation. And of course, they'll both be available. So anybody has a question about it can always just go check the videotape, as someone used to say. That all sound okay with you?
That sounds great.
All right, Mari, thank you very much. Glad we could get together, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for all you're doing too, Michael. I really appreciate it.
Okay, bye-bye.